Welcome to 'Cause We're Nerds, the podcast that covers trends and new releases in comics, movies, video games, board games, and much more. I'm your host Caleb, and with me is my co-host and cousin, Zach.
I'm back, baby!
It's time to Digivolve as we fight for supremacy over who's the best, Pokemon or Digimon? Will Digimon's cult status bring it to the front? Or will the worldwide phenomenon that is Pokemon take the win? Find out on this week's episode of 'Cause We're Nerds. Alright guys, we're back, and after a plethora of rotating guests, Zach has returned!
That's right, none of them could beat me. I have been traveling the world trying to be the best I can be, the best Pokemon person I can be, and I have failed. I have come back not even beating the first gym.
Alright, be honest, did you play Pokemon Go while you were overseas?
No, I actually haven't touched that game since its release.
You missed an opportunity.
You know, I was too busy living it up in castles, actually, and checking out some other pretty cool places.
That's where the best ones live.
But
where do you think Dragonite go?
I did see a couple people playing Pokemon Go.
Awesome. Well, Zach, sincerely, it is good to have you back. I need some stability in my life.
It's glad to be back. Thank you to all our guests who have been on. You guys have been great, but there's no replacing the original.
Okay, so let's see. News up front, stuff to take care of. All right, guys. So I posted this on our Facebook page, so some of you have probably seen it. Some of you might not have. If you've been following our feed, then you'll know that we started a show called 'Cause It's News that I was doing with my wife Courtney, and my brother Jacob was on an episode doing the news for the week. And honestly, it just got to be too much work. There's a lot of stuff that comes with doing a news show that isn't the same as just a regular podcast. Like we can't record them ahead of time. There's a big time crunch leading up to it. So it
what
just
Caleb's
got...
what Caleb's trying to say is that it forced him to spend time with his wife, and so he wants to cut it out of his life now. Sorry, Courtney, but it's done.
You're going to get me in trouble. But basically, because of that, we're going to put that on hold for now. It could always come back in the future. If you guys want to see it come back, we'll see. There hasn't been a whole lot of feedback that we've gotten on it, so if you love it, let us know. If you hate it, please let us know as well.
Look, here's the thing. If you want it back, all you need to do is go on your Gmail, type in causewe'renerds@gmail.com, send us $50 through the Gmail account, or through Snapchat, or through Venmo, and you know what? We'll start it back up. If every listener just sends a one-time donation of $50.
Oh yeah,
it'll be back
great.
Up, baby.
Yeah, we don't make any money off of this, so anything.
I mean, speak for yourself.
Oh, well, come on, let's share, come on.
Okay, I am now going to take a sip of my ice-cold Dr. Pepper.
I've got room temperature water, so not quite the
what
same
a pleb.
kick. Yeah, so, all right, Zach. We're going to do something a little bit fun here, and we're just going to get right into it.
Ready, fight!
Digimon's the best because they look awesome.
No, Pokemon has way better evolutions.
But Digimon are cool because they can combine into newer, cooler Digimon.
Doesn't even count. Pokemon has so many more video games to play.
But Digimon gives me all the feels.
That's true, but Pokemon has better balls.
Oh yeah, it's true.
Yep, yeah.
Okay, so the question we're asking today, guys, is Digimon better than Pokemon? My answer, the title of the video, is yes, it is. Zach, I don't know if you agree with me.
Not a chance.
Not a
chance. Not a chance if you look at the cultural impact and if you just look at them as shows and entities of themselves. Pokemon way outweighs any advantage Digimon has.
Okay, so that's actually a really good point. We are coming at this from a very specific angle, at least I am. Zach and I haven't really talked about this that much because he's been away, so we'll see how this goes. But I'm comparing this mostly from the anime to anime side. they both have games, they both have other things. But I'm primarily looking at the anime.
I'm looking at every other sphere of influence that doesn't impact that 2% of anime fandom that exists. But Caleb, I think it's true. I think if you look at just like overarching, if you look at the anime, just like look at 2 clips side by side, Digimon definitely has more of that feel, which I believe why Pokemon succeeded a lot better than Digimon did.
You mean like Digimon just looks more anime? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it connects. It's a more anime type show, just from like the way it's structured, as well as like aesthetically how it looks, versus Pokemon, which is way more accessible.
I agree with that. I think that's a very valid point. And this is kind of one of my things that I was trying to think of when coming up with the differences, because there are a lot of differences. In fact, start up at the top. Pokemon and Digimon are actually very incredibly different. And the only reason that they get compared, I think, is that the very core of what people see is similar, which is kid, monster, together.
Yeah, on one hand, you got pocket monsters, and on the other hand, you got digital monsters.
Right. And so, let's start off with a bit of history. Pokemon was first released as a video game. Pokemon Aka and Midori in Japan. That's red and green for you people out there. And then it came to the States a couple years later as Red and Blue. And that was in 96. And then the anime debuted in 1997. Now, on the Digimon side of things, it started as a video game as well. Actually, you might not know this, Zach. It started as like a male version of the Tamagotchi pets.
Oh, sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so that was in 97, the same year the Pokemon anime debuted. And then 2 years later in 99 is when Digimon got its first anime. So we're looking at a difference of about 2 years here, which is pretty close in anime years.
It is. You had Digimon Adventure, I believe, that ran from 1999 to like 2003. That was like the first season. I'm not sure about the ending date, but it was pretty short. But yeah, Pokemon. I mean, I remember getting my first game. I actually didn't have either of those first 2 starters. I had Yellow with Pikachu. I remember picking up that game at Kmart. Kmart was closing. Kmart. Yeah, it was closing, and that game was on sale. I remember being super excited. I begged my dad, and I picked it up. And
Kmart's still closing.
I was just still closing to this day. You walk into a Kmart, there's like just a tumbleweed rolls by, some old man in the back. What do you want?
Yeah, my first Pokemon game was actually, I got it at a Christmas. We were together. I don't know if you remember. My first one was Pokemon Gold. And I must have known what Pokemon was at that point, because I remember being really excited to get it, but I couldn't even really read at that point, so it was really hard to play.
Yeah. See, and I remember watching the TV show as well. I feel like we've watched it together, but I'm not exactly sure about that. But I remember the first episode, or at least the first episode I can remember from memory, is, if you're familiar with Pokemon, is the one where Ash has Charmeleon, and I'm pretty sure it's the one where he either evolves or it's right after he evolves, because he's dealing with attitude issues.
No, the first one is when he's on the bike and he has all the Spearow.
Oh, no, I know that's the first. I'm saying the first one I've watched.
Oh.
Because Charmeleon faces that, I don't even know, that Pokemon with shrooms on its back. Shroom. There's like over 9 million Pokemon now, so I don't even know.
Gloom? Oddish?
No. Oddish.
No,
not Oddish.
You're talking about Paris.
Yes.
The crab.
Yes,
yeah.
Paris, right? And he fights Paris. Anyways, I believe that was the first one I remember watching. But then again, that was back during the Wild Western days of the 90s, right? Where you basically just had to hope that some reruns played some old episodes if you missed it. And every Saturday morning, you had to make sure you caught it. I remember actually going on vacation, and we were so upset we were going to miss Pokemon that we had my family friends, record it. And of course, back then, how you had to record it was you had to set up like a video camera.
VCR.
Yeah, on the VCR, right? And record it. And I'm pretty sure the Pokemon recorded it over like a home family video that we had, just so we could get that episode. So somewhere we have that episode still of Pokemon that you can watch.
I did that with Transformers when I was little, but I never had the ability to watch any show week to week. And so growing up, like, I didn't know how long these shows were. Maybe I watched an episode right after another one. Maybe I didn't. You know, I never got the full story. So I definitely watched Pokemon. I have no idea what my first episode was. And I think most of my memories are actually of the first movie with Mewtwo.
Yes,
Yeah.
sure.
So
Now, did Digimon ever release a movie nationally like Pokemon did?
like in the theaters?
Yes.
That's a good question. I know that they had a movie, and I saw at least part of it. I don't know if it came in theaters. It was a weird movie too, because in Japan, I think it was released as 3 separate movies, and then they like edited them together to make one movie for the US version. And so it was kind of different.
It's kind of strange.
Yeah. I don't really know about that. That's a good question. I don't remember it coming out in theaters, at least. But Digimon, even at the height of its success, it was not at the same level as Pokemon ever was.
Not at all.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure what that is. I mean, I think you hit a really good point up at the top where you said that Pokemon just look cuter. They're easier to grab onto. I think Digimon very naturally has a much edgier look to it. It's designed to appeal to 8-year-old boys.
Well, yeah, I mean, coming from my experience, so right around the time you had the Holy Trinity, you had Pokemon, Digimon, and Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Though, I mean, you had a lot of other cartoons, but those 3, in my mind, are all kind of somewhat similar. Now, I couldn't watch Yu-Gi-Oh because that was of the devil. So I watched Pokemon and Digimon, but it got to the point where my mom basically said, okay, you have to choose one. You cannot watch both of these. They're taking up too much of your time. Yep. And I remember as a kid, it was instantly Pokemon. There was no competition between it. It was Pokemon. And again, I think it's just more accessible. You have a group of 3, originally you have a group of 3 people who are traveling, collecting Pokemon. The Pokemon are cute. It's a really easy story to follow. There's games that go along with it. It aesthetically, it looks, like a child's, something a kid would watch, a child's cartoon, right?
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you have Digimon. And actually, before this episode, Caleb, I was watching some videos of like the top 10 battles on Digimon and some other videos as well. And when you look at it, I would say you have to compare it more closely to like a Yu-Gi-Oh art style, because it looks more like an anime. Mm-hmm. The monsters, like you say, look a little more edgy. They don't look as cute as Pokemon do.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And it has more of a serious, kind of scary tone to it. So, and, from the top, I know I said this in kind of our funny little battle a bit, but Digimon didn't have, as far as I know, as many games as Pokemon by any means.
Yeah, and this is one of the core differences with them, is that, and this is something I wanted to say at the end, but I'll go ahead and say it here. Pokemon and Digimon both started as video games. They both got anime. Digimon stayed as an anime for its main form of entertainment. Pokemon is still mainly a video game franchise. I mean, the anime's been running forever, but in my mind, Pokemon is the core of Pokemon. The video games are the core of the Pokemon franchise. And, I mean, it permeated so much in the 90s, and I don't know if it was because it was popular that it permeated, or if it got popular because it permeated. But, like you had the card game and stuff, and people were doing things like that. And you're saying so many things I want you to say. You're doing great. Another thing that you mentioned that this is my big argument for why Digimon is better than Pokemon, is you said Pokemon's story is easy to follow. Pokemon has no story, period. Like, you could skip almost any episode. There are very, very few episodes that really actually matter at all.
Yes and no. I think at one hand you're correct, because it was the format of the 90s, like I just said, right? You had to wake up and catch the Saturday morning cartoon to get the story. And yeah, you could miss one and totally be fine. On the other hand, you miss one and all of a sudden Ash has a Squirtle. And you're like, where did this Pokemon come from? I have no idea how he got it, right? So you had to follow chronologically the story. And then on top of that, there were pretty powerful stories. I mean, Bye Bye Butterfree. I don't know about you, man, but as a kid, I sobbed. I sobbed, right? So there's some pretty powerful stories. And then, I mean, if you look over all of it, like it had an incredible climax, at least to the, what was it, second season, I think, when Ash goes all the way to battle the Elite Four. And, oh shoot, I can't believe I'm blanking on this. The Dragonite that belongs to...
what's his name? I don't remember his name either.
No, this is so bad.
The dude with the spiky hair. I mean, they all have spiky hair, but it's not... I feel like it starts with an E. Oh, he's looking it up, guys.
I'm looking it up. Got this. I have to.
It is...
Drake.
Oh, not an E. Not at all.
It's Drake's Dragonite, which is the final battle, right? Like, building up to that Elite Four moment. And I remember why it was so impactful, because it was a 2-part episode. It ended halfway through, and I want to say Ash like had his Lapras, and maybe there was a Gengar that was thrown out. Something was thrown out, and like they blasted each other. Then it was like it froze, and it was like continued on the next episode. Like
right.
It built up all the way. Now on the other hand, I think Digimon did the same. I just didn't watch it as much, right? Because I had to choose between the two. I do remember, like, my fondest memory of Digimon, and this was actually, I found this again in one of, like, the top 10 battles, was when, whatever, the kids were getting defeated by some evil monster. I can't even remember what. And there was that one Digimon that was, like, this flying creature that was, like, a baby, basically, and would cry at everything. It was, like, the most useless character, and you're like, I hate this character. And everybody was getting defeated, and that character finally did its last Digivolve, or like the ultimate Digivolve or whatever.
It turns to the Angel?
Angelmon.
Yeah.
Right? And then Angelmon like blasts, and like he looks sick. At least he did as a kid. I don't know now how it compares, but like he looked pretty sweet, and he blasted the evil creature. Mm-hmm. Like, yes! Right? And so I think Digimon had those storylines as well. It was just that as a kid, Pokemon was easier to follow.
Yeah, and I get that. And I get the mentality of Saturday morning cartoons. You want it to be easy to jump in anywhere and watch it, and you get the story. My issue is, it's become more clear with as much time has passed, because the show is still going on. Ash never ages. Nobody ever ages. He never wins any of his league battles. He never becomes the champion of any league. He just continues on his journey, and eventually Brock and Misty go away, and another guy and another girl come in, and it's always him, a guy and a girl, on a journey, and he catches Pokemon sometimes, although normally he doesn't, which is super weird, because he wants to be the best, and he ends up releasing them, and it's like, I'll give you, like, there are some stories, like the ones you were talking about, but those are so few and far between. And on the other hand, for Digimon, Digimon has one story, right? Per season. It is an overarching story that goes across the entire thing. Sure, there are episodes that you could skip and really not miss anything. There are some filler episodes. But the stories actually start somewhere. They have a beginning, middle, and end, and there is a resolution, which is a really big thing that Pokemon does not have. Pokemon is built at this point to go on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Your great-great-grandchildren could watch Pokemon, and it will be the exact same thing it is now.
It's all about that money.
Right.
No, that's a good point that you make, Caleb, but I don't think it diminishes the value of Pokemon. Why? Well, because Pokemon is a multimedia franchise now, right?
Right.
So so I work with kids, and I can't tell you the number of times kids have reached into their pocket and pulled out a deck of Pokemon cards and are looking at Pokemon cards together, or trading Pokemon cards, or have a Game Boy or some type of device with Pokemon on it.
Kids don't have Game Boys anymore.
No, they don't. It's more like your tablet or phone, right? But like Pokemon cards are still a thing. I mean, you can still play competitively in Pokemon, right?
But
because it's still easy to follow too. Kids are still watching Pokemon now.
Right.
You can't say the same for Digimon. Nobody's watching Digimon anymore. Nobody has Digimon playing cards.
That's
no
actually
kids. No. Okay.
So
40-year-olds in their basement are watching Digimon.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing with the cards. They have the cards because the cards are easily accessible, right? You can say that's because it's still popular. You can say it's because they kept printing them. Whatever the case, That's why the kids have the cards, and because the show is on TV. Now, it is a big franchise, but like I said, I'm looking at this specifically from the anime point of view. And when you look at storytelling in general, right, you have a beginning, middle, and end. Now, that's not to say SpongeBob can't be enjoyed because it doesn't have overarching stories. Of course not. That's not true. You can watch SpongeBob. Some people hate it. Some people like it. It doesn't matter. But from a story perspective, you would say like something like The Dark Knight is better than SpongeBob because it's a real story. It's not just entertainment fluff.
Sure, I see. I mean, I see what you're getting at. I think what you kind of aren't seeing is that Pokemon does have a beginning, middle, and end. It's just that every one is a separate story with, yes, a ton of fluff in the middle of it. But each separate story, it's based on the game, right? The game's not based on the television series. The television series is based on the game. What's the game about? The game is about starting with nothing, getting Pokemon, battling the Elite Four, defeating some type of Nimbus like Team Rocket, and then being the champion, right? So that's what Pokemon is. So when they finish that storyline, instead of Ash turning into an old man and all these strange, weird things happening, what happens? They have to reset everything because that's what happens in the Pokemon game. So that's what they do with Ash. They give him a new group of friends. They give him a new setting with 120 more Pokemon to explore. They keep some constant, like Pikachu. They have to keep him now, right? And they get a new voice actor for Ash, and then he goes on the same exact journey, basically. He starts all over, catches more Pokemon, battles whoever he needs to battle, defeats all the enemies, and wins, and then they reset it. So they just keep that going again and again and again. Yes, it's the same story, but that's because it's based off of a game versus, I know Digimon is based off of a game, but I think it's more of an anime, as you have said.
Here's the issue with that. I don't dispute anything you said. Everything you said is correct. 2 issues I have with that. Issue 1, the characters in the games are never the same character. With the exception of Black and White and Black and White 2, you always play as a different character. All right? So that's my first issue. My second caveat I would say with this is, you said that it follows the games. When has that worked out for a movie? People love to hate on video game movies because the thing that video game movies do is they try to be too much like the game. Every medium has its own design method, right? If you're writing a book, it has a lot of strengths that movies don't have. Movies have a lot of strength that comics don't have. You know, all around, right? And so I think that you are right. I think that they are based on the game, but I don't think that handcuffs it. I think you can do something better with it. And this goes into one of my points with Digimon is Digimon stories come to a close. So aside from the first 2 seasons, which are connected, each season of Digimon is brand new, right? The things that stay are the core concepts. And I talked about this a little bit in our Does Canon Really Matter episode, which came out last week, which is the fact that Digimon resets every time, and a couple things stay constant. The main character always has goggles. Don't ask me why. Digimon are always these creatures that live in a digital world in the internet or computers, and they can digivolve into more powerful Digimon. But aside from that, the world is completely different. Basically, it's a different universe, right? Different characters, different universes. And what that does is it allows you to have stories with finality. I mean, we talked about it with Infinity War this year. One of the reasons Infinity War is so good is because it brings an end to a part of 10 years, right? The Marvel Cinematic Universe. And Digimon is able to do that every single season. And while Pokemon might have some of that in it in some smaller chunks, it doesn't have the same weight. It doesn't have the same execution. Just the format of it doesn't allow it to be that level of storytelling, I guess. I think what would be more satisfying is if Ash had his adventures. He didn't always stay 12 the entire time. He doesn't have to get old, but maybe he comes in, they give him 5 years worth of seasons, and they introduce another character. Or maybe they spin it off. Like, wouldn't it be cool if they had one that just followed Brock around doing stuff? I mean, I don't know. I think there's other ways to spin it.
I mean, I think if you just look at it overall, like pull it back, yeah, you had a lot of valid points. In general, Digimon from an anime perspective is, I mean, I definitely agree with you, is a better anime. However, I think Pokemon just wins over Digimon in the other 99 areas, right? Because if you look at it, Pokemon is way more accessible to every single generation. Pokemon has more of a multimedia, multi-dimensional platform for games, for that card game, for, you know, Pokemon Go, for tablet games, just for TV shows, for movies, right? And in general, Pokemon is just easier to watch. It's easier to digest. It's going to make a much larger, a much bigger impact than Digimon. Not to say that Digimon isn't bad, but basically
Isn't bad?
Isn't bad. But in all other areas, but anime, Pokemon wins.
Okay, so I don't think this is what you're saying, but what I'm hearing is that because Pokemon has so many other things out there that can get you into it, that makes it better. So the fact that it's more prolific makes it better?
No, I'm saying that's one reason.
Okay. Sure, and I can't argue that because it is more prolific. And that's part of why I was saying, you know, we're comparing anime to anime. Now, this isn't to say that there are not Digimon games. There are actually a lot of Digimon games. There might be more Digimon games than Pokemon games. The difference is most of them did not come to America. Most of them were Japan only. So obviously we don't see those. And they're still doing anime. One of my Whatcha Been Up To recently was that I watched one of the reunion anime movies that they started producing 2 years ago. There's 6 movies, and they are a return to those first 2 seasons, those characters. And they're actually doing a whole nother new anime that they announced that there's not very many details out, that returns to that as well. But one of the things that, and I think this is really what got me to think about this. Last year, actually the past several years, I have been kind of going back and re-experiencing some of the things from my childhood that I don't have a super great memory of. And Digimon is one of those. I loved Digimon. I watched it. I had the little Digivices that were games in themselves that you could play when I was younger. And so last year I went back and I started re-watching Digimon. And yes, it is a kid show. And yes, some things could be better. The voice acting can be better. But it deals with very, very mature topics. I'm talking death of family members. I'm talking divorce, loneliness, pride, and with the exception of maybe loss and death, I don't really think that Pokemon ever delves into that type of thing.
Bye-bye, Butterfree. Come on, man. Like I said, Pokemon is more accessible to everyone. Digimon is accessible to a niche tier.
Well, no.
Those 40-year-olds
I think
with neck beards in their mother's basement.
Wait a minute.
Got them.
4-year-olds?
40.
Oh.
I mean, maybe there's some 4-year-olds with neck beards in their mother's basement. Wouldn't be the creepiest thing ever.
No, so Zach, I feel like you were dismissing Digimon because you love Pokemon. Maybe that's not what's happening. But
No. So I'm saying they are both good. I think you are dismissing Pokemon because in your mind, Digimon is has a more adult theme, which I agree it does. But I think in general, Pokemon is simply a better, more, I don't know, more cohesive. But I think Pokemon is better than Digimon because of the fact that it is more accessible and it has more multimedia platforms.
Wait a minute. That's the opposite of what you told me earlier.
Well, I've changed my mind.
So
let's just agree that they're both better than Beyblade. Okay, I tried to rewatch some of that series, and it's I can't.
We loved Beyblade though.
Oh, it's so much fun, especially the toys. Okay, Pokemon and Digimon have nothing over Beyblade's toys. I will say that. Right?
Although Digimon did have these really cool transforming toys that were kind of like Transformers but different. Those were cool.
Sure, right? But like Beyblade, I tried watching that
awesome.
again, and it was like the TV show was just so cringy.
No, I couldn't.
Kids grabbing
Beyblades.
and battling, and it's just
Yeah.
like, mine's better than yours because it has razor edges. No, it was like, oh, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. So,
Both, but I think in general, both are good. Pokemon's good.
yeah,
Digimon's good.
and I don't expect to really change anybody's minds on this, honestly. And I've noticed that you tend to look at Pokemon as a whole, and I'm looking very specifically at the anime angle. And it is because I think that as a child, you need to be exposed to real life lessons. Now, I'm not saying you're 3 years old and you should have a parent die. That's terrible. I would not wish that upon anyone. But I think we all have stories that shape us as when we're children. And when they deal with very real life things like death or divorce or judgment or being an outcast or loneliness or pride, I think those stick with us. I mean, you've talked about the Butterfree episode. Clearly, that has had a really big impact with you. And for me, I think that from a story standpoint elevates the anime. And of course, there are some other differences. Like, it's all set in the digital world. It's a completely different world. Pokemon is more like bug collecting. In fact, the original games are based on bug collecting. They were made because the designer was like, I liked collecting bugs as a kid. Maybe you can collect other things in a game. Digimon is not like that. Digimon is actually a partnership between a person and a Digimon. When you're in Digimon, you don't go catch other Digimon. You have your one, and that's it. And it's not a pet like it is in Pokemon. They're also friends in Pokemon, but they're a little bit more like pets. In Digimon, it's a partner, right? And that's who you have. You don't get to pick them. They're kind of stuck with you, which is an interesting angle, I think, too. Which, actually, Pokemon did have that because Ash didn't go to pick Pikachu. So that's there in both. I think part of my argument as well is Digimon has more depth in maybe some of its concepts. That doesn't mean it's super deep. It is for kids, you know.
No, and I agree. So I think you're missing me on this point, okay? So let's go through a checklist, Caleb, a checklist, all right?
Okay.
What is more cohesive, Pokemon or Digimon?
In what way?
In all the ways.
Can we define cohesive a little bit more?
What is easier to follow? Which is easier to follow? What if right? If you would suggest one of these as something easier to follow that somebody can just pick up and watch, which one would it be?
I would say Pokemon.
All right, so Pokemon.
Because not much changes.
What has better storytelling?
Digimon.
Okay. I haven't watched, I can't actually speak to that because I haven't watched enough Digimon to be able to weigh that out. Which do you think has better art?
See, art is super subjective. As a former art major, I think that you can't really answer that. It's going to be based. Yeah.
That's too subjective, right? I already asked which is more accessible. I've already asked that. Okay. Which one is still going on? Is Digimon still being produced?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a tie. And what has a better multi-platform presence?
Probably Pokemon, although
What has more video games, card games, toys, shows, movies, etc.? Pokemon. Hands down, 100%. There's no way you can convince me that Digimon has better, right? So if we just look at that simple list, Pokemon has 2, Digimon has 1, and the rest are tied, right? So you're looking at
how many movies is Pokemon up to now? Just curious.
I don't even know, hundreds. You're looking at just that one tier, right? What I'm doing is I'm looking at the entire tier, the entire list. So you're saying Digimon is better because it has better storytelling. Well, I would agree with you 100% on that, but that's because that's just one small point when you list those out. And I mean, I just list like 6. I'm sure there's 100 we could go through. But I think if you flush all those 100 out, what you get is it would still weigh more towards Pokemon. More of those points would lean towards Pokemon, thus making Pokemon the better overall, I don't know what we're labeling this, but better show overall. And I don't know if we want to say show or platform or whatever else.
Franchise is the word you're looking for.
Or franchise. I mean, franchise, I guess. It's a better franchise because more of those points are going to be leaning towards Pokemon, right? You keep saying the drama, the story. I agree with you on all that, but that is one small point in all of them.
And I was going to get to the other aspects of it later, And I can't argue with you. I mean, Pokemon is far more prolific. You keep bringing in that side when we're just talking about the anime, which is
I'm
fine.
not just talking about the anime. I can't just talk about the anime.
Well, excuse me. That's kind of why I said that up top is when I say Digimon is better, what I actually mean is Digimon, the anime, is better as a form of, in terms of storytelling, which is what shows are, than Pokemon. Now, I'm going to pause you before you say anything. I do not hate Pokemon. I love Pokemon. I play Pokemon every February. We have a whole month in my office that we play
my
Pokemon.
Goodness. You probably play it more than me. I mean, do you still do Pokemon Go?
Not kind of. Like, I'll open it occasionally, but usually there's nothing around me, so I just immediately close it.
Nice.
But while we're in the middle of this, I want to give a plug to, there's a 4-part mini-series for Pokemon called, what is it called? I Choose You? No, hold on. Let me think. All right, Zach, talk for a second. I'm going to look this up.
Well, folks, that wraps it up for today.
Generations. It's called Pokemon Generations.
I have heard of that.
It's 4 episodes. I watched it a couple years ago. It is very, very good. Everything is based on the original games. Like we've kind of talked about, the games are kind of separate from the show at this point, even though the show is loosely based on the games. This is directly based on the original games. And so like some of the character designs are different. It's really good. It goes through the story of the original game with a very small modern addition, which is Mega Evolutions at the very end.
If we are going ahead and suggesting Pokemon things to watch, go to YouTube. I believe it's produced by Dorkly, and it's Pokemon Rusty. It is hilarious. I'm pretty sure it's not safe for work.
Probably not.
But it is a parody on Pokemon. For example, it's Ash. It's the artwork is amazing because it's like the video game. But like Ash chooses I think he picks up like a Bidoof, and that's like that weird looking animal that's like memed all the time, and it's like it has like ripped muscles. And then I'm pretty sure he just goes to try to capture something. I'm
pretty sure a Bidoof is like a raccoon.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's like that raccoon thing. Yeah, but it's like ripped with muscles, and they've completely changed it but its head. And then I'm pretty sure he does stuff like he goes to try to capture a Pokemon, and like one of his Pokemon just beats the other to death. And he's like, no.
That's funny.
So it's just like this really funny, like it's Pokemon Rusty, like a new game. Mm-hmm. Completely hilarious.
That's awesome. And Pokemon does have a lot of hacks out there that you can download as ROMs in their different games. But I thought we could go through the different series that each has had real quick, just because there aren't very many. Digimon started with Adventure. It had Adventure 2, and then it had Tamers in 2001, Frontier in 2002. And that's kind of where I think people started forgetting about it. Because it wasn't until 2006, 4 years later, that Savers came out. And then another 4 years later, Cross Wars came out in 2010. And then Digimon Adventure Tri came out in 2016. As well as App Monsters, which is something I don't really know anything about. On the other hand, Pokemon has ran pretty much continuously since it debuted. I don't know.
Kind of following the video games, actually. Kind of following the video games, because if you look at it, it follows them.
It does, but very loosely. Which I think it would be hard to follow them exactly because the games are they're kind of linear, but they're kind of not linear. But yeah, like they go to whatever area the new games have done, right? So it started in Johto, or started in Kanto, and then it went to Johto, and then it went to Hoenn, and then it went to I lose track. I don't know. What was the next one?
But I can't remember it, but I mean, it's like, I think it's after Hoenn, then it's when you get Pokemon Advanced Challenge, Advanced Battle, Battle Frontier, then you get into Diamond and Pearl, and I believe after Diamond and Pearl, it's Black and White, and then there's X and Y, and then Sun and Moon, and I mean, in each of those has like it's not just, Pearl, it's whatever, like Pearl, and something else, or like Black and White Rival Destinies, Black and White Adventures of Nova and Beyond, or whatever, right? So it just keeps on going.
I googled the Bidoof thing you were talking about.
Oh yeah,
And I found a different picture on the left. So in Sun and Moon, they got Alolan forms. Are you familiar with that?
I am. Yep.
Yeah. So for our listeners, Alolan forms are like just alternate versions of the same Pokemon. It's kind of like if you had an animal here and you had the same, like elephants. You have African elephants and you have Asian elephants. They're both elephants, but there's differences, right? And so this one is Bidoof on the left, and it says Bidoof Alolan form on the right, and it's Exodia from Yu-Gi-Oh!
Nice.
Super hilarious. All right. So it's pretty clear to me we're not going to agree on this, which is fine. Like I said, I didn't really expect anybody to side with me anyway. Both are really good. Both are very, very, very different. One of the reasons I decided to do this topic was because most people think they're the same. They're just really not. I mean, I've talked about some of the differences. It's worth a watch if you're curious. I would say if you're going to go in, don't start at Adventure. Don't start at Adventure 02. Start at Digimon Tamers. That is season 3. It is probably the best series that they have done. Probably the most accessible because it takes place in the real world, like our world. Digimon kind of invade it. And the voice acting is really solid. It's also the darkest of all of the series from what I've read. I haven't watched all of them, but it's supposed to be pretty solid. And then, like I said, Generations for Pokemon. The first 3 movies are also really good for Pokemon. The first one specifically, that Mewtwo one,
classic.
Gets me every time. Every time. All right. Is there anything else we want to talk about this? No, it pretty much covers it. Cool. Well, Zach, I'm sorry that I couldn't convince you. I couldn't help you see the light, but maybe there's someone out there in this crazy old mixed-up world of ours that knows there's still a better anime. It's
called
Digimon.
Pokemon.
Wow, wow.
Another Weird Al reference, Albuquerque.
If you haven't checked out the Albuquerque album, or the Running with Scissors album, go check that out. Shout out to
Run
Weird
with
Al.
Scissors.
What?
And then Run with Scissors.
No, don't do that. Please don't. Don't sue us either. All right, Zach. Well, since we're done with that, we are going to our next most famouses of segment is What You Been Up To?
Well, as you know, I went to Europe, so I have been traveling around, except I was on a plane 8 hours one way and 8 hours back. So I got to watch a bunch of movies that were released. I actually, at one point, I was watching in front of me a movie, and there's a guy sitting like in 2 rows in front to the left watching Infinity War, which was like released. And so I was watching my movie, but also watching Infinity War at the same time. Nice. Pretty sweet. And like as the movie was going on, I was just like quoting the words because I've seen it 4 times. So I'm like, oh, I know that part. Oh, I know all the parts. I know what they're saying there.
Anyways, everything.
Anyways, I watched Pacific Rim Uprising.
Oh, okay. So fun story. I have sort of kind of seen the first one because we do model parties at work. We build Gundams, and we put that on one time when we were building one because it's like Gundam. So
it is, right?
Yeah.
And actually, in the second one, there's a scene where one of the giant robots, mechs, is flying and like lands in a cityscape, and like where it lands is in front of this huge building, and in front of this huge building is a Gundam, like the typical one you always see. You know?
Oh,
like
is it in Japan?
Probably.
So in Japan, they have a Gundam museum, and there's a giant Gundam statue outside.
Okay, then yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that probably land in front of that. Anyways, decent movie. If you've seen the first one, the second one's pretty similar. If this was still out in theaters, I'd probably highly suggest going to see it in theaters, just because if you want to see giant robots battling, this is the place to see it. The first one was more giant mechs versus giant monsters. The second one is more giant mechs versus other giant mechs.
Oh, interesting.
So just go into it knowing that. But, I mean, you still get some really cool battle scenes. It's a good one just to have on if you want to chill for a night and maybe you're doing something else and just want to throw it on to pay attention during the battle scenes. I mean, the drama and everything else is really boring. But other than that, the awesome mech battle scenes are worth it. So, you know what? I would say it might be worth a Redbox. It might be worth a Netflix, but go ahead and watch it.
Awesome. You probably didn't see this because you were out of town, but did you see that they announced a live-action Gundam movie from the same production legendary that makes that?
I did not.
Yeah. Look forward to that.
So, Caleb, what have you been up to?
Oh, I thought you had multiple things. You said you watched a lot of movies.
Guess you'll have to tune in multiple podcasts.
Okay. My thing is also a movie because I have been pretty busy. I've been reading some books and some stuff, but I'm not done with them. Can't really talk about them yet. But I did see Christopher Robin, the movie.
Oh, how was that? I've seen commercials and it looks pretty decent.
You know what? I told Courtney that I wanted to go and we were going to go, and then I was like, do I really want to go? I mean, I'm an adult. I don't have a kid. And, like, I think it had, like, a 70 or 80 on Rotten Tomatoes, which I don't really trust Rotten Tomatoes, but...
Sure.
But we went, and it was really, really good. It was uplifting. It was incredibly sad. It was probably... So, you know, like, that style of movie where they take a character, they age them up, and then they take them back to, like,
Sure.
It's the best movie like that I think I've seen. Because they've done it a lot recently.
Now, did it throw you off? Because, like, Pooh Bear, Winnie the Pooh, and, like, some of the other animals, like Eeyore, Piglet, all of them look kind of creepy. Not gonna lie.
No. So, I think the reason you're saying that is because the movie is set in, like, the 40s or the 50s, right? And so they're styled to look like stuffed animals from that time. Because actually, this kind of threw me off. All of the animals are actually stuffed animals, except for Rabbit and Owl, who are real animals. I think they did it because their design looks like a real animal and the others don't. So that threw me off a little bit. But actually, this movie has some of the best CGI I think I've ever seen in a movie. I never felt like any of the characters were fake.
Now, did it have any type of scene like in the Winnie the Pooh movie where it's like they're high on drugs and because they eat too much honey, I believe, and then like stuff starts dancing? You're like, whoa! There's like Winnie the Pooh is experiencing an acid trip, here,
right?
And it's just weird.
No, they didn't have anything like that. They do talk about Huffalumps a couple times, but
Nice.
we didn't get any on screen. But it was like for real. Courtney is not a fan of Winnie the Pooh. She never really watched it growing up, and she really enjoyed it. So check that out. And then, small recommendation. I also saw a movie called Three Identical Strangers, which you probably haven't heard of. It's a very small independent movie, but it is a documentary, and it was legitimately probably the best movie I have seen all year. It was very well done. So the story it's based on a true story. It's a documentary. Basically, there were these it was a pair of triplets who were split up at birth and accidentally find each other through life. And then there's like a conspiracy about why they were split up and what it means and everything. It's really good.
What platform can you get this on, or is it in theaters?
So I saw it in theaters, so it's probably not out yet. It was probably going to be on Redbox and Netflix pretty soon, I would think, because it is such a small independent movie. But you have to go to theaters to see it. And it's only in select theaters, so it is a little hard to find.
And
I had to drive out a little bit. Sorry?
What's it called again?
Three Identical Strangers.
All right.
Highly recommend. All right. Well, I think we did it, Zach.
We're done.
Man, that went by fast.
Are we the very best?
There ever was. Like no one ever was.
Come on. You failed me for the last time.
Zach, I'm just trying to be the very best.
Like?
No one ever was.
No. Like Taylor Poole. Come on, man. Like Taylor Poole.
Taylor Poole. Taylor Poole's an awesome guy. He did our intro music, and we like it a lot. And you can check him out at taylorpoolemusic.com. That's TaylorPoole. Don't forget it. Music.com.
And when you are feeling dark and like watching Digimon, you can also jump over to CNC Power Hour over on Facebook and play more dark games like Magic.
You can check them out on Facebook, but Twitch is where they stream.
Or Facebook.
Well, I don't know if they update their Facebook.
Oh, well, then don't check that.
Find him on Twitch. And check out our new website that we launched a couple weeks ago. Zach has just been looking at it. He hadn't seen it because he was out of town, and he likes it a lot.
It's pretty dope.
Check that out.
Yep.
Thanks for listening to 'Cause We're Nerds. Stay up to date with all the nerdy news and podcast drops by following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also leave us comments and feedback at cuzwerenerds@gmail.com. That's CUZWERENERDS@gmail.com. And as always, if you enjoyed this podcast, we would love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. Next week, we're going to talk about something awesome. What is it? You're going to have to wait to find out. Be sure to come back next week and check it out. And as always, stay nerdy.
All right, Caleb, to now decide which has a better theme song, we will both sing the songs at the same time. Are you ready?
Oh, this is not going to work out.
3, 2, 1. I want to be
Digimon,
the very
digital monsters.
best.
Digimon are the
that
champions.
No one ever
Digimon,
was.
digital monsters.
To
Digimon
catch
are the
them
champions.
is my real test.
Change
To train them is my
into
cause.
digital monsters
Pokemon,
to
gotta catch them
save
all.
the digital
Something about a
world.
heart so true.
Digimon,
I
digital
don't
monsters.
even know
Digimon are the
rest
champions.
of the song. Pokemon.